All right. Good evening, everyone. So today we're going to discuss some of the UPSC Prelims questions 2026. I'll mostly stick to the portions of international relations as well as some miscellaneous current affairs questions. Something related, some related to defense, some related to film, art and culture, etc., etc. Mostly the miscellaneous portions as well as the international relations. Now, for my portions, as you will see that the questions are mostly factual. They are not based on too many concepts. This year, the conceptual questions have been, the concepts have been reserved for mostly polity, history, science and tech to an extent, even geography. So, but then some of these questions, which are extremely factual, could have been solved if you had followed, really good, authentic resources. So now, of course, the key is out for everyone to tally their paper and to see the scores that they are able to get. But it is also important for us to locate the sources of these questions, of the options, where exactly, or how UPSC goes about looking for, what is important, what needs to be asked, what to rely on as far as sources are concerned. I have also tried to track down the particular month in which that issue was important or more relevant or was being spoken about, right? So we'll have a very general discussion. Of course, you have the key, as I said earlier, but in spite of having that, we must also know where exactly UPSC looks at when it comes to setting or asking you questions, So let's just begin. Um, So, as I said, I'll only stick to some questions of international relations as well as other miscellaneous questions. Now, the first one being question 60. Okay, I'm following set A. Okay, I'm following set A. Now, the first question is this one, which is set A, question number 60. It says, consider the following statements about Mission Sudarshan Chakra of India, right? And we'll have to see that which of the above statements is or are correct. Now, this particular mission was first spoken about in the Prime Minister's speech on Independence Day. Of course, that means August 2025. Okay. So, earlier, these speeches of Prime Minister and President and other important lawmakers and change makers were very important for mains exam. But this year, we'll see that it has also become important the content of the speech, sometimes the relevance of that speech. If there is any kind of important analysis as far as the syllabus is concerned from those speeches, they have become important also for your preliminary exam. So this particular mission was very openly and elaborately spoken about by the Prime Minister on his Independence Day speech. Okay, so let's see the statements. The first statement is it aims to enhance India's air defense, ballistic missile defense, and aerial offensive capabilities, right? The second statement is the mission is being designed to enhance rapid, precise, and powerful defense responses, reinforcing India's strategic autonomy. And the third one being that the mission aims to cover all public places of India by an expanded nationwide security shield by 2035. Now, why did I read all the statements in one go? Is because all these three statements have been picked up, I won't say word for word, but almost similarly, similar words you will see here in the third option that I've given in my detail of answer. Now, this particular passage you see, or rather, this was the content for Mission Sudarshan Chakra from the PIB Ministry of Defense year-end review, which came in December 2025. So what does it read? That it, again, you see the content here, it enhances India's offensive capabilities. It is designed to enhance rapid, precise, and powerful defense responses, reinforcing India's strategic autonomy. And as I said, exactly what the statements have mentioned here, that all public places will be covered by an expanded nationwide security shield by 2035. So the moment you read this portion, right, from your PIB, you if you had done this, then you could have easily marked the correct answer, and that is that all three statements are correct. Okay, statement 1, statement 2, as well as statement 3. Now, this is of course the third portion. On top of this, you can see there are two more points that was there on the in the Hindi newspaper. Now, of course, we all know that Hindu is extremely relevant for your UPSC preparation. Now, of course, in August, of course, after the Independence Day, there was this article on PM talking about Mission Sudarshan Chakra, and it exactly more or less said the same thing as the PIB mentioned, that it will develop an indigenous air defense system by 2035, not only to neutralize enemy attack, but also to actively hit back strongly. So it just won't be passive, but also an active hitting back of whatever threat India could feel. But the next line, if you see here, all the important places of the nation, which include strategic as well as civilian areas, will be given complete security. Now, this, in also this line, which I've picked up from Hindu, this was also mentioned in another PIB news material. Okay, that all important places of nation, which include strategic as well as civilian areas. But in that article of PIB or in the Hindu newspaper, it has been not said that all public places. So as you know, this year there has been this conversation that there are so many questions where the options are pretty vague. So on one hand, at the end of the year, they did say that all public places, but this all public places was not mentioned clearly. This aspect of Mission Sudarshan Chakra, it was not mentioned very clearly in, when the news came out in the month of August, whether in the Hindu newspaper or a more authentic source being PIB. Even there, they use this particular term of including strategic as well as civilian areas, right? But because it is mentioned at the end of the year in December, it was mentioned in PIB. And if you read this portion and then you tally it with your options, you will see that UPSC has picked up from this particular area. But again, I would say that this was vague because you are mentioning two different things at different places, which can confuse the readers. Okay. But however, we can identify the source from where the statement has been picked. But this, I'd also very clearly like to say that the statement has been, written differently at different places, and by different places I mean government documents. So this is something, a matter of concern for the students, definitely. Okay. Now the next question is question 66, and that is, which of the following connectivity projects are a part of cooperation between India and ASEAN member countries? Now, of course, you must know that, which are the ASEAN members. This is your basic class 12 policy and NCRT knowledge, right? All the, different international cooperations and unions that we have in the world, you must be aware of each of the member states. This must be, you must be absolutely thorough with it, right? So they have asked that which of the following projects are part of ASEAN. First option they have given is the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Project. The next one being IMT Trilateral Highway, and the third one being Agartala Akhaura Rail Line. Right. Now, we'll try and see that how, if each of these projects that are there in the option were they relevant last year or at the beginning of this year. Now, if we think of Kaladan Multimodal Transit Project, this particular project, has been or was spoken about by the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Mr. Sonowal. So while he was addressing, in the about the north multiple initiatives in the northeastern region, he did say that, or he did, as a answer to one of the queries, he said that the Kaladan multimodal transit transport project is set to be fully operative by 2027, and this is there in PIB very clearly. If you open, there's one of the news articles, the headline is there on Kaladan multimodal transit project, that the Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterway announced that yes, the project will be fully operational by 2027. So in the month of July PIB, this was mentioned. So definitely this has some relevance, right? Because now, of course, if you ask me, this particular initiative was signed by both India and Myanmar in 2008, right? But why is it relevant now? Because it will become operational in 2027. So of course, it will remain to be important and relevant for another year. And we will see later that how this particular project was not just spoken about or highlighted by the Minister of Ports and Waterways, but also by the Honorable Prime Minister later. Okay, so is this part of the ASEAN cooperation 100%? Because we're talking about Myanmar. Okay, Myanmar being a member in this. So this is this is an agreement, framework agreement between India and Myanmar that was signed in 2008. And what would it do? It would connect India's eastern seaport of Kolkata to Mizoram in northeast India through Myanmar. And because it is multimodal, it would combine sea, river, and boat routes. And as I said, that you should also have some extra information. And mind you, all of this I have gathered from PIB because it will be operational by 2027. So I have a feeling that it might be relevant for your next year as well. In other way, clearly UPSC, they can ask you anything under the sun, literally. So for some additional information, this project will connect Sittwe Port. Sittwe Port in Myanmar again becomes very important. So it will connect the Sittwe Port to the Indian-Myanmar border under this particular port project, which is the Kaladan Model Transit Project. Okay. The next is IMT. So this option definitely is correct. Okay, because they have asked that which projects are part of the cooperation between India and ASEAN member countries. So definitely this is the correct answer. The next is IMT Trilateral Highway, which is the India, Myanmar, Thailand, or Bharat, Myanmar, Thailand Trilateral Highway. Now this, again, you see, again how speeches have become important, because if you look for it, you will only find this particular highway, the mention of it, you will only find in PM's address at Rising Northeast Investors Summit in May 2025. It was a very important summit last year in 2025. And PM, the Honorable Prime Minister, while he was addressing the people of Northeast, in his speech, he spoke about the IMT Trilateral Highway. So again, this highway, if you see, was approved in 2002. And again, this is also estimated and expected to be completed not before 2027. But because its completion year has come so near, that you will have important ministers, or rather, respective ministers related to these particular ministries talking about them in their speeches. So definitely these particular projects and various other will again become important. Why am I telling you this? So that you understand how to go about when it comes to current affairs, right? It is very important to understand that, when you read the newspaper, it is just not about reading facts. It's also to know, okay, this is something that has happened. He has given this speech. What all is there in the speech? Is everything important? No. But something that will be completed in next year, something that has achieved some kind of a temporal milestone, like 75 years or 50 years of completion, and a particular important cabinet minister or the prime minister is talking about it, that particular topic, of course, becomes important, right? So again, this was as you can see, it was proposed by former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 2002, and it is what is it about? It is a connectivity. It is called the India Myanmar Thailand Trilateral Highway, right? So definitely option 2 is also correct, right? Because Thailand is also being a member of the ASEAN Union. Now the next one is Agartala Akhaura rail line. Yes, one more important thing I wanted to say is, in this very speech, in 2025, in the month of May, which the Prime Minister made, he also spoke about the Kaladan multi. If you read the entire speech, he not just spoke about the IMT Trilateral Highway, but he also spoke about the Kaladan Multimodal Transit Transport Project. So you see, if so many people are talking about it, and important lawmakers and change makers in the country, they're talking about a particular project and repeatedly, definitely that becomes important. Okay. Now, the third one is Agartala Akhaura rail line, which is a rail link inaugurated in 2023 between India and Bangladesh. Definitely, Bangladesh is not a member of the ASEAN Union. Now, for this, there are two things that you must know. that your NCRT is important, right? Basic, this is basic. If you don't know each and every member of these bilateral and international unions and cooperations, then you will not be able to solve the question further, because they are not asking, they're not stopping at who are the members. They're asking who are the members, and therefore what are the projects that we have signed in or roped in with these countries. So you see the depth. We are constantly talking about the depth that UPSC has gone into. This is the depth. It is just not about knowing the member states. It is also about keeping in mind the speeches that the Prime Minister is giving, or the other important people are giving at these important governmental seminars and summits. And in those speeches, are they talking about any kind of economic development, social development, legal proceedings? And are they important? Do they have some relevance in 2026, next being 2027 or 2028? So, respectively, they will all those issues will become important. So I'm just trying to, train your mind towards how UPSC thinks. Of course, it can never be an absolute key, 100% picture, because they never give out a macro picture, because they always keep changing things every year. But a vague way has been signaled to us that this is how we look at what is happening around us and what is relevant for you to remember. Okay, the next one is question 67, set A. Okay, I'm repeatedly saying this is set A. Now, this is again a very factual question. Okay, I did not see much relevance here. Um, the correct option here is B. Now, Mangdechu hydraulic project. Now, Mangdechu River is an important river in Bhutan. This is something that we all are aware of. So you can mark this, right? Restoration of the Store Palace in Afghanistan. It was an initiative by the Afghanistan government, the government of India, and the Aga Khan Development Network. It's a private organization, and this was done way back in 2016, right? Now, the district hospital of Dikoya in Sri Lanka, this is relevant to an extent. Why? Because this was inaugurated by the Indian Prime Minister on his visit to Sri Lanka in 2017. And also in March 2026, this particular hospital was in news because a protest erupted against the administration, of the hospital, because of certain sexual misconduct that was witnessed by people amongst the employees of the hospital. Okay, so you see here, we're talking about 2017. We're talking about a news, and I'll be very clear and I'll be honest with you, people. This news was not there all over. It was very vaguely mentioned in some of the news groups, and very vaguely mentioned, nothing important, but they have still mentioned. So I'm just giving you a way. Let's see. In your UPSC prelims, not every question will be doable, but some questions can be doable even if you can achieve 60% of what the sources we are telling you here. Okay, if you say that PIB is there, if you're saying that government website pages are there, if you say that if one newspaper should be read, you have to be thorough with one newspaper. Even if you do 60 to 70% of it, it is doable, because ultimately prelims is a qualifying paper. Okay. Now the next, now of course Maldives, this one, Institute of Security and Law Enforcement Studies, Maldives is important. Maldives has been important last year. Why? Of course, we know that the Indian Maldives relations for a very short period of time was extremely strained because of the current president, Dr. Mohammed Muizzu. Because when he before he rose to power, this is the campaign that he used to popularize his stand. That was the India Out campaign, and he also demanded withdrawal of certain Indian troops, right? And that was followed by a lot of these diplomatic, or you can say derogatory remarks by certain Maldivian ministers, and that also affected their tourism, because India contributes a lot as far as tourism in Maldives is concerned. However, all of this was revamped in 2025 when Prime Minister visited, Maldives, and he reignited through his speeches, through the initiatives that they took. He again reignited the neighborhood first policy, the popular neighborhood first policy. So India, Maldives relation has been important, at least in 25, right? It has been important. But have they asked you about the India Maldives relation? No. What have they pointed here? Institute of Security and Law Enforcement Studies in Maldives. Why is it important? Because this particular institute was established in 2022, and earlier it was known by this name. Currently it is known by the name of National College of Policing and Law Enforcement, right? And why is this important? This is of course a training ground for Maldivian police and security services. But the most important aspect is this particular institute it's a capacity building project constructed and funded by the government of India as a part of their neighborhood first policy. So when we talk about this particular institute, right, which is situated in Maldives, this has some significance in India because this particular institute is funded and constructed and designed by, it is as an initiative of the government of India. So definitely it will always have, have some relevance. And last year, India-Maldives relation was extremely relevant. So as you see, they're not asking you directly. They're going a notch higher, a level higher, and trying to pushing you to think even at in deeper aspects as far as every issue or topic is concerned, right? So here the correct option will be B, because Mangdechu is in Bhutan, restoration of Store Palace of course is in Afghanistan, and Dekoya is will be in Hospital of Dekoya is in Sri Lanka. Okay. Now, this one, it is a question related to defense, that which of the following items of defense hardware is or are manufactured in India? Now, the Sukhoi Su-30 MKI, this was a lot in news last year because of Operation Sindoor, right? Operation Sindoor as a retaliatory measure by the Indian army that we took against Pakistan because of the Pahalgam attack, the terrorist attack that took place in Pahalgam Valley. So because of Operation Sindoor, which was very important, a crucial, turning point for the Indian defense organizations. This and because this particular hardware, which is the fighter jet, which was used heavily in the Operation Sindoor, this automatically becomes relevant, right? So this was in news because of Operation Sindoor, because it was used in this particular operation. Now the question is, are they manufactured in India? Now the technology, if you see, is developed by Russia's Sukhoi. Sukhoi is a very, very popular Russian aircraft manufacturer, right? So definitely it is the technology belongs to them, but now it is built. These particular jets, if you see, they are built under license in India by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, right? So definitely this answer is correct. This option is correct, that yes, it is manufactured in India, right? The next is T90 M3 tanks, right? T90 M3 tanks. Now this was relevant in 2024. Why? Because Indian Army got its first batch of upgraded, overhauled modern T90 Bhishma tank or T90 M3 tank, right? And this was in news in Hindustan Times in October 2024. So your query is whether current affairs should be relevant of 1 year or 2 years. Clearly, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes they will go a little back, they'll kind of go back to the other year, which is 2024, and ask the questions, and you will have to be ready. If not everything, but some important points. So this was relevant in 2024 because Indian Army got its first batch of upgraded T90 M3 tanks. Okay. Now, it's a local, again, it's a local variant of the Russian T90. This is also important, you must remember, but it is built in Tamil Nadu, right? It is built, they are using the technology. So see, licensing and technology transfer agreement. So it is built under using the Russian technology in India. Clear? Now, the next option, so clearly this option is correct. Third one, which is Akula class submarine, this is incorrect because it is exclusively manufactured in Russia. And not just exclusively manufactured, India does not even purchase the Akula class submarine. Rather, it acquires them through a lease agreement from Russia. So what is a lease agreement? When you acquire something for a particular period of time in exchange of certain monetary payments, right? So it is not purchased it, and it doesn't have the ownership of this particular submarine, permanently. It temporarily leases this particular submarine. The last lease agreement was made in the year 2019. Now, why has this been asked this time? Because in December 2025, there was this fake news that there has been an agreement between Indian government and Russia for an Akula class submarine lease. And PIB came out and rejected this false media report. They said that this is absolutely fake. We have not signed any agreement for leasing in Akula class submarine. And this was there in PIB. And because it was there in PIB, it was also reported by, I think, a lot of business newspapers like Hindu. It was there in Business Standard, and it was also there in Economic Times. So I'm being very, very precise and clear about where exactly were the sources of the news, right? So you should keep these things in mind, have it on a piece of paper, and now whoever people who are preparing for next year preliminary exam, don't lose heart. Just have these points in mind that these can be the sources. You do your main source. That is, of course, the most important. But of course, whenever you have some time at your leisure, then definitely you can add few more things from these particular sources, because these particular sources are not just relevant this year. It's just that this year mostly questions have been asked from a lot of government documents, NCRTs, etc., etc. But they have always been relevant. Okay, even 10 years ago, these sources were relevant. Okay, so the option will be, the correct answer will be A, which is 1 and 2, because Akula is not manufactured in India. It is not even bought by India, which the PIB has very clearly mentioned. Okay. Now, this one, consider the following statements, and then you have to decide which of the following are correct, right? Now, these are multilateral cooperations. Okay, these are multilateral cooperations. What are these? One is the Colombo process, the other is the Abu Dhabi dialogue, and the third one is the Global Forum for Migration and Development. Okay, these are the three multilateral cooperations that we are talking about. Now, we'll see the sources later. First, let's decipher if these particular cooperations were relevant last year or not. The first one being the Colombo process, right? What happened? In India has assumed, so India has been a member of the Colombo process since 2013. But from 2024 to 2026, so it's a relevant time for this year's prelims exam, it has assumed the chair of Colombo process for the first time since its inception, right? So the first time it is chairing the Colombo process from 2024 to 2026. Now, this particular news was there on news.air.gov.in, which is the official page for Indian broadcasting, or the official page of Akashvani News. And this was there in May 2024. This particular news came out in May 2024 on the official page of Akashvani News. Now, I don't know about today, but earlier, few years ago, 5, 6 years ago, this particular official page was relevant for students. You know, when students did not have a lot of access to sources coming from, in terms of social media, in terms of video, when students actually had to actively and voluntarily hunt sources and make their own notes. This particular page used to be very important. Along with PIB, the Akashvani news page used to be extremely important, and they also, I think, they hold a program every evening. And for half an hour or 40 minutes, I don't remember. So that particular thing was very important when students sit down and make notes out of it. Okay. Now, of course, you have a lot of sources outside, online sources, and they're also following this news. But you should also keep your eyes open and make sure that you sometimes, if not every day, it's not possible humanly. Sometimes, if you know that there is an issue important happening in India right now, why not listen to the Akashvani? Why not go through PIB if there is something more important, more crucial, right? So if you have an Operation Sindhu taking place, for as UPSC aspirants, of course, the opinion matters. You should know what opinion everybody is having, stakeholders are having, the lawmakers of the country is, they are having. But along with that, the technical aspects, the military hardware is being used, the arms and ammunition is being used, the funding, where is it coming from, how is it being done, what are the terror groups, organizations that have been banned, that have been blacklisted. All this critical information you will find very precisely and very clearly written on your PIB page. Okay. The next is the Abu Dhabi dialogue, which was held in Dubai at the end of January 2026. So they are relevant. What am I first trying to show you? That the Abu Dhabi dialogue, the first being the Colombo process, is relevant because India chaired this particular cooperation and has been chairing from 2024 to 2026. Abu Dhabi dialogue was held in 2026. It was the eighth edition of the Abu Dhabi dialogue. It was held in Dubai. And of course, the summit of the Global Forum on Migration and Development, the 15th summit was held in 2025. So they were somewhere down the line relevant in news. But now, if I tell you that all these three options you see here, right, you have to see, you have to locate and identify that if these options are correct or incorrect. These options directly have been taken from the I've mentioned here the official page of Ministry of External Affairs. You just have to go there and type list of multicultural multilateral cooperations, and you will see these three options there. And all these, the options with whatever information has been put here has been directly, literally pulled out from this particular page. So the official page of Ministry of External Affairs become very, very important. And of course, the kind of position today India holds in the entire geopolitical map, in the entire geopolitical scenario, of course, your external affairs issues become very important. So this particular page, in fact, this particular page has always been very important, right? Because they have such minute detail. And as I always say, even if you do 50-60% of it, half the job is done. Okay. So now let's see how correct or incorrect the statements are. The Colombo process is a regional consultative process in which member states take binding decisions. This is not correct. Okay. They don't take the decisions are not binding on member. Now let's see what the ministry page says. The ministry page says that the regional consultative process comprising of 12 member states of Asia, okay, which are countries of origin of migrant workers. So what is basically this Colombo process? It is nothing but it manages the overseas contractual labor, exchange of labor, right? And this particular cooperation is it comprises countries of origin of migrant workers. That means countries where the migrant workers belong to, right? Now here you see this process is non-binding and decision making is done by consensus. That means this particular statement is wrong because here it has said that it is binding. This particular statement becomes wrong. Okay. Further information is there on the ministry page. Is India has been a member of the Colombo process since its inception in 2003. Okay. The next one is the Abu Dhabi dialogue. Okay. Now let's do the difference also here. Colombo process is a cooperation for between countries of origin. But Abu Dhabi dialogue is not just a cooperation between countries of origin, right? The 12 member states of Colombo process, which are the countries of origin, but also the six Gulf countries of destination. That means where these laborers belong, the country to which these laborers belong, and then the countries to which the laborers are migrating for work and for economic empowerment, right? So Abu Dhabi dialogue is a larger cooperation, not just consisting of the members of the Colombo process, but also another six Gulf countries of destination. And please remember the names of the countries: Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, as well as Malaysia. We have seen this was extremely relevant because of the whole Middle Eastern crisis that was taking place. And that time a lot of Indians were I mean the Indian ministers and the lawmakers, they were very worried about uh, what will happen or what will be the fate of the migrant workers who reside in these countries, because a lot of these countries were directly affected by the whole tension between the whole Middle East tension that was taking place between the US and Iran and all these countries. Okay. Next. Okay, and the Abu Dhabi dialogue was established in 2008. Okay, And it is a cooperation. This part is very important because it distinguishes Abu Dhabi dialogue from the Colombo process, because it is a cooperation between Asian countries of labor origin and destination, right? So to facilitate regional cooperation, and again the topic remains the same: contractual labor mobility, right? So it's about international migrant laborers, to make sure that they are in good conditions, in safe conditions, to make sure that they are getting whatever economic interventions required. These cooperations have been formed. Is it clear? Now, the next one, of course, is, you will see again the next one on the Minister of External Affairs page, is the Global Forum for Migration and Development, right? It was created. Now, this particular statement, okay, let's see the statement, of course. The Abu Dhabi Dialogue is a voluntary, non-binding consultative process among Asian countries of labor origin and destination to facilitate cooperation on contractual labor mobility. So this entire line has been picked up, if you see, from this point, right? From this point, if you see, this entire line has been picked up, right? The next one is, so this point, this one is of course a correct statement, because it is non-binding. We have already done that, is non-binding, and it is a process among countries of not just labor origin but destination, to facilitate regional cooperation on contractual labor mobility, right? You see here, to facilitate regional cooperation on contractual labor mobility. So a line has been directly picked up from the page of official page of Ministry of External Affairs. Next one, of course, is the Global Forum for Migration and Development. It was created in 2006 upon the proposal of the then United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan, right, at the UN General Assembly High Level Dialogue. And it is based again on an open discussion format, and it is non-binding and voluntary. So what is very common about all the three cooperations are that they are non-binding, they are voluntary, and that the fact that they are voluntary. And what is the statement here? That the, see again, directly picked up from the third point, that created upon the proposal of the former United Nations General Secretary is a voluntary forum whose decisions are non-binding. So again, the statement is 100% correct. Okay, so your correct answer is going to be C, which is statement 2 and 3. So you see how not only these particular cooperations and unions were they relevant in the year 2025, and some being in 2026 for various reasons. It could be the Middle Eastern reasons, it could be the tension that was there between the US and Israel and Iran, okay, and other reasons. But also, the source of picking up these, the source has been the government sources, all right? They're not just any random news or opinion piece written by, written in one of the newspapers. Opinion pieces are also important, don't get me wrong, please, but they become important, some of them, if not all, become important for your mains, generally for your mains examination. But for your prelims examination, because it is objective, because it is, some of them will be a little factual, you have to hit the bullseye. It is very important that you rely sometimes on government sources. For critical issues, it is very important that we rely on government sources. Okay. Um, the next is, consider the following. Now, this here, UPSC has said A, but I think this is wrong, because the correct will be answer option 3, which is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Because it is, what is the question? The question is, how many of the above? No, yes, sorry. Okay, no, the question is, will be correct. Sorry. They've asked how many. I thought they've asked, the, I'm so sorry. Yeah, the question is how many, which is one. I thought they've asked to pinpoint the number, the option. So how many? It is only one, which is United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. UNHCR is the only United Nations organization, it's the only agency which has won the Nobel twice. Okay, once in the year 1954 and the other in 1981. United Nations World Food Program in 2020 it has won. United Nations Children's Fund in 1965, and ILO, of course, we all know, in 1969. Now, was UNHCR relevant last year? UNHCR, for a matter, is always relevant, but it was more relevant last year because it celebrated its 75th anniversary in December 2025. And the UNHCR office in New Delhi particularly also celebrated the 75th year anniversary. So it was in news. And of course, when you do UNHCR, one of the features or an important achievement that you do of United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is the fact that it is the only United Nations agency which has won the Nobel twice. Is it clear? The next one is Um, again, this is a very factual question. I was not able to come out with, with its relevance. As they say, the head and tail of the question. Why was it asked? One thing is something has been asked, and you find the source. And another thing is why has it been asked? Like earlier, all the questions I was trying to at least look at some relevance, right? And I'll be very honest, not all the relevance, all of it has a very clear. All of them they have a very clear cut relevance. Some of them have very very vague relevance, but nevertheless we have to go with the flow. But this particular question, it is extremely factual. If you know it, you know it. If you don't know it, then it's just hard luck. So the correct option will be B. I don't want to waste your time also by just getting into detail. But yeah, the correct option is B. It is extremely factual and there's nothing much to discuss in this. And I think the next question is also similar. Which of the following pairs is not matched correctly? This is the 33 corps, which is not in Srinagar, but rather it is in Siliguri. Siliguri has a very important army base, right, in West Bengal, and therefore this 33 corps is located in Siliguri in West Bengal. Is it clear? Now, which of the following countries are members of European Union? Now, European Union, of course, it has been in news because of the whole Middle Eastern crisis. What is their take, right? It has also had a take on the Ukrainian and the Russian crisis earlier, right? The way it has responded to the Middle East crisis as far as humanitarian relief is concerned, mitigating energy and inflation shocks. We have seen them making speeches, letting the people know what is their stand on this particular Middle Eastern issue. We have also seen how earlier they provided political, humanitarian, and military assistance to Ukraine, right? And today, Ukraine is in the process of negotiating its EU membership, right? So EU has been in news for the last two and a half years. It has been relevant. So if it is relevant, this question I think is legible. I mean, and it's a legitimate question because they just asked a very simple question. Following members, which of the following countries are members of EU? Again, this is your basic NCRT class 12, contemporary world politics. There's this new NCRT, which you should have read. In that particular book, you will have all the important international cooperations, unions, bilateral ties, each and every member state mentioned very clearly. So you must go through that particular NCRT, okay? And here, of course, Belarus, and neither Belarus nor Switzerland, they are members, only Poland and Germany. And Switzerland is very, very popular as not being a member of EU. It is one of those few countries, it is not a member of EU, but it has its own currency, it has its own political independence, but it is a member of the border-free Schengen area. Okay, the Schengen visa that you get to travel to different parts of Western Europe, right? If you have that visa, you can freely travel in Switzerland, right? So, meaning travel between Switzerland and the EU is largely passport free, right? So it has some ties with the EU, but politically, it is definitely not a member of the European Union. And of course, we all know it is part of the European Free Trade Association. Often you will find Switzerland being in news for this, right? So this question is a very generic question. And this you should have gotten right. There's nothing much to scratch your head for. Now, this particular question, which is on Interpol colored notices. Now, so Interpol, of course, we all know it's an international police organization for crime investigation, right? And it's headquartered in France, as far as I remember. Now, it has certain colored notices that it issues for various crime instances, right? So the silver one is to track as illicit assets across the globe, across national political boundaries. The red notice is to detain a fugitive. The blue one is to seek additional information. The black one is to find an unidentified body. Yellow notice is issued for missing persons. Green is to warn people or organizations about the political potential threat to public safety. Orange one is to alert, send alerts to imminent and serious threat. And the purple notice is to share information on criminal method, right? So on, and of course, along with the colored notices, which are 8 in number, the ninth is also a very important one, which is known as the Interpol United Nations Security Council Special Notice, issued for individuals and entities targeted by UN sanction. So this is a UN sanction based notice that can be issued by Interpol only when it targets individuals and entities under US sanction. Okay, along with 8 colored notices, there's also a 9th special United Nations notice. Okay, a special a Security Council special notice. So, which will be the correct answer here? The correct will be C, right? So the silver notice, as we said, is for what? If you go through this, is to track criminal assets, right? The blue notice here is for additional information. So the blue one is to will be for additional information. The black one is to seek information on unidentified bodies, and the green one is to provide information on potential public threat to public safety. So if you match it, you will see it will be option C. Now, was this relevant? Yes. This information is not out of the blue for you to get confused or be upset about, because this was very relevant, because in January 2025 in the Hindu newspaper it had come that Interpol for the first time launched its silver notice. That means earlier there were only 7 colored notices, right? The 8th one, which is the silver notice, was launched only in 2025. And again, it was in news in May 2025. And don't worry, I've written here Indian Express. I'm sure it was there in the Hindu also. It's just that while preparing this, I tracked whatever I got. But this was in news also in the Hindustan Times. I'm very, very sure of it. You can go and check. Is that Interpol issued its first silver, like here the silver notice got launched. But when was it put to use? It was put to use in May 2025 on India's request to track global assets of an ex-French embassy officer. We are right, just now done, right? The silver notice is to identify and trace criminal asset. So it was not just in 2025 that it got launched, but it was also used for the first time on India's request to track the global assets of a French embassy officer, right? So again, you see how relevant this is, right? Because not only Interpol is launching a particular notice to, to kind of mitigate crime, but at the same time, it is being used by India as well. So this is very relevant. Also, in February 2025, you must know this extra piece of information. In PIB, there was this news on Bharat Pol portal, okay, which was launched and developed by CBI. What does it do? This particular portal, it enables, legal enforcement agencies real-time information sharing for faster access to international police assistance. So it will enable all the law enforcement agencies to have access to what? Real-time information, and also to share it to international police assistance, right? And not only that, this particular portal will streamline all the requests for international assistance, which includes also the color-coded Interpol notices. Okay, so it will also streamline all the requests here, as we saw, right? India made a request. So this particular request will be streamlined now through Bharat Pol portal. So this color-coded notices, okay, issued by Interpol for different crime instances was relevant in the year 2025. Now, this visit of the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Friedrich Merz, this again was very much in news, right? When he visited in 2026, again it has been mentioned also that he has visited. So they're asking which of the following are not correct. Again, if you go to their official page, right, there is a list of, and it is written, you see the question is also, what is the question? The following statements are not correct in terms of outcomes of this particular visit. So if you go to the official page of Ministry of External Affairs, you will see very clearly a written in the heading, it is written list of outcomes and announcements. It's a very, it's I would say an arguably long list. Okay. And of course, we all know that Friedrich Merz, who was the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, he limited his visit to Gujarat and Karnataka, right? These are the two states that he visited largely when he came to India. So he made certain announcements and certain memorandums were also signed, and there's a complete list. So we have to identify which are the two wrong, the incorrect ones. The first one is incorrect because everything is fine, but it was not the University of Hamburg. It was the Charite University of Germany. Okay, it was not Hamburg. And this one, these two are correct. The fourth one is incorrect. This, of course, you can use your common sense that because he visited Gujarat and Karnataka, the opening of honorary consul of Germany in Ahmedabad. It was not in Lucknow because there was an extensive visit in Gujarat. Right, so this you must have used your common sense. But this entire list, which is very factual, I agree, but it has been very clearly mentioned on the ministry's official website. Now, what happens is, of course, nobody is expecting you to, kind of mug it up and have all the names crystal clear in your head. It's not humanly possible. But once you go through it, you can always make the connects because in the newspaper or whatever source you're following, you are reading, right? The videos you're watching, you get to know that yes, the Chancellor of the Republic of Germany, he did visit India and he limited his visit to Gujarat and to Karnataka, right? So then when you go to the official page, you can also then you read the list of outcomes, the announcements, then you can make the connect. Of course, the Honorary Council of Germany will not be in Lucknow, it will be in Ahmedabad because his visit was in Gujarat, mostly in Gujarat. The Prime Minister of India welcomed the Chancellor in Gujarat itself, in his home state, right? So this is a very, very current affair relevant question, directly picked up from the official page of Ministry of External Affairs. Now, this is mostly, I think, for the tennis enthusiasts because I feel this Grand Slam tennis tournament, right, is very, very relevant for, and it's very important, and it's a matter of great honor for all the tennis players across the world, and of course for all the tennis lovers and enthusiasts across the world. So, what is this Grand Slam tennis tournament? It is nothing like if you, it comprises of, basically if you are let's come here. Yeah, so the Grand Slam is an achievement for winning all the four major championships in one particular year. So, if in one particular year you can win all the four major championships, you get the title of Grand Slam, right? So, they together they just called the Grand Slam tennis tournament. And which are the four major championships? This, of course, we all are aware of it, regardless of being enthusiast of tennis or not, which is the Australian Open, the Roland Garros, the Wimbledon, of course, being very popular, and the US Open, right? So when a player wins all the four, tournaments, then together and in one particular year, he gets the title of the Grand Slam, right? So this again is relevant, I won't say, but this is something which is always in news, right? And as we are talking today, this was in news yesterday. Because why was it in news yesterday? Because this again we are all aware of, is the great Novak Djokovic, right? The great tennis player. He has 24 major titles of Grand Slam. And this year, yesterday, he could have won his 25th, but he could not. Why? Because he got defeated by the Brazilian tennis player called João Fonseca, right? And because he got defeated, he has not yet won his 25th, and his 25th is still awaiting, right? This is still awaiting, right? So just imagine the question was for last week, and it has suddenly become relevant today. It's all over the newspaper in the sports section. If you see that again, the great Novak Djokovic is just one tournament away of victory from winning the Grand Slam honor. right? Now let's see the options here. So we have to see which are correct. Now this particular question, I feel it was a little vague. Why? Because the first option is the tournament have a shared governance structure establishing partnership among the four Grand Slam tournament. This again, if you read, you will know this is the correct one because the Grand Slam is all about the four tournaments, together, which is the Australian Open, the Roland Garros, the Wimbledon, and the US Open. Together, they are called the Grand Slam, right? So this, of course, this is important. I mean, this is correct. And shared governance structure, yes, it is. If you read on their official page, it is operated under the shared governance structure and where their policies and rules are coordinated through the Grand Slam board and unified partnership known as the Grand Slam tennis, right? So it's a unified cooperate, it's a unified sports cooperation. The next is the next option is a little vague. I would like to point out is a little vague. Why? Because the next option says that they are open, which is the Grand Slam tournament is open for entry to all internationally ranked tennis players above the age of 14. But when you read their official information, it says that tournament is open to international players who not just meet the age criteria but also the merit criteria, right? Definitely this is partly correct because yes, you have to be above the age of 14 to get an entry into the Grand Slam tournament, but it doesn't end there. The other criteria is entrants must hold an international ranking of 500 or better to participate. This is important, right? So, what does it mean? This statement is incomplete. This statement remains to be incomplete, right? Because it is just not about your age criteria, but it is also about your merit criteria that you must hold an international ranking of 500, which is a lot, okay, or better to participate. So UPSC has said that this is the correct answer, A, which is statement 1 and 2 are correct. But I feel this, especially, in fact, the irony is somebody who is extremely aware of tennis and all the rules and whatever, they will get more confused than the rest who are not that enthusiastic about this particular form of sport. Because since they're so aware of each tournament, where does it take place, who can perform, you've seen, right, enthusiasts. There are so many individuals who are so aware of all the players and their rankings, their global ranking, their domestic ranking, their achievements, their failures. Those people ironically will get confused because most of them will mark this as incorrect because this is one of the criteria, right? There are two criterion, there's just not one. So I feel this is vague, but nevertheless they have said 1 and 2 correct. Yes, it is correct if we look at the statement, but somebody who is aware of all the rules will, I feel, mark this wrong and we just get a very simple question incorrect, which is sad, right? And the third one is, what is the third option? The limitation on the number of wildcards a player may receive to compete in a Grand Slam tournament. That means there it is limited. The statement is saying that the number of wildcards a player can receive in this particular tournament is limited. This is incorrect, right? Because there is no such limit, okay? There is no lifetime limit on the number of wildcards you can receive across your career. So 1 and 2, but I would like to reiterate once more that this statement is incorrect because if it is meant to see your interest in not just academics but in sport, right? You ask these questions to encourage students to be more interested in sport. But on the hindsight, what you've done is only those people will get it incorrect who know the rules very, very well. Because they'll go and attempt it very confidently, and most of them will get this incorrect. So this is an incomplete, vague statement. So um, I hope the concerned collective take notice of such issues because it's very sad. It's an incomplete statement. Okay. Mm, the last one that I should be discussing, the last question is this particular film called The Boom. Now, of course, again, like sports, many people say that films are not that important. But of course, film making or film, of course, is not exactly related to the UPSC syllabus, but it becomes important when it has some kind of relevance in society and in country. and the country that you live in, right? Uh, and this particular film has achieved certain milestones at a time which is extremely politically and culturally and nationally, domestically, you can say it's symbolic. And therefore, now onwards, when you read the newspaper, when you discuss, when you watch things online, I know a lot of you follow a lot of online sources, and it's fine. But don't don't let go of information just because you think it is not correct. Try to look at the wider picture. When you look at this year's question paper, clearly it is pushing students to have a macro view of everything happening around, and also an in-depth view. It's a tough thing to do. It's easier for me to sit here and make these big claims. It's a tough thing, but I'll repeat once again, if you do 60% of it, I think half the job is done. This particular film was all over the news, and for all the right reasons. First being, it is one of the first films to win a BAFTA. Now, in the world of filmmaking, there are some awards which are considered to be extremely, extremely important, and it's a big milestone that one achieves, like the BAFTA, of course, the great Academy Awards, Oscars that we call, the Golden Globe Awards. In India, the national awards that the filmmakers and the participants in a particular film they get, right? They receive. So it's a great honor. Okay, it's a matter of optimum honor that one is felicitated with as far as filmmaking is concerned. So BAFTA, of course, is a very, very prestigious award, and this particular film, Boom, was is one of India's first film to win a BAFTA, right? So it is not only India's first film, but it is also India's first film to get the award in the children and family film category, right? So of course it is important because another reason why it is important is because it's a film on Manipur. It's a film by a Manipuri, right? And why is it important? From the matter, from the aspect of representation, right? All this while, for a very long time in history, we have seen that it took a lot of time for different regions of the northeastern part of the country. It took a lot of laws, it took a lot of cultural changes, progresses for them to be part of the mainstream, right? And also what? To get the kind of representation the rest of the country gets. And today they are getting it, right? They are on the global map. They are on the national map, right? So that way also it becomes important, right? Because it's coming from Manipur. And of course, we all know that Manipur has been facing a lot of ethnic violence. It has been facing a lot of tensions, political ethnic tensions since 2023, right? And why this film is important again is this particular director, it was her debut film. Okay, so when she went up to the stage and the speech that she gave, it attracted a lot of global attention. Okay, in fact, this film, when it won the BAFTA, it also garnered praises from the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, and the Prime Minister congratulated the director and the production house on his public account of X. So it is very significant because it is coming from a land, from a region in India at a time when that particular region is going through so much. So her speech, where she made a very simple, a very crisp appeal for peace and a peaceful and harmonious society for the future of the children of Manipur, that caught the attention of many people. So it was all over the news, right? So to say that this question is irrelevant or arbitrary, I think it would be unfair, right? Because this is the first time a Manipuri film is getting. We have seen Assamese, we have seen Assamese films achieving a lot of these milestones earlier, and now we have a Manipuri film. So let's see the first option. The film has recently won the British Academy and Film and Television Arts Award in the children's and family film category, right? So it has won the BAFTA. This is correct statement. The film is directed by Lakshmi Priya Devi. It is her first film. Okay, it is her first film. This is also correct. And of course, the film. This is the first film to win BAFTA in the children's and family film category. Yes, another extra piece of information is not just the first film in children and family film category, but also the first film at BAFTA made by an Indian. You have Slumdog Millionaire, you have Life of Pi, but they are mostly by foreign production houses and other issues. But if you think of a film made by an Indian production house, by an Indian director coming from Manipur on India, made in India, using Indian technicians. This is the first experience that India got as far as the BAFTA is concerned. So all the three statements are correct, and definitely this piece of information is very, very relevant. Okay, so because of the fact that a film, an Indian film for the first time won the BAFTA, and not just any other Indian film, but a film all the way from Manipur, a region that has been, not just Manipur, but other regions also of the northeastern part of the country, which have been, on the periphery for a very long period of Indian history. Suddenly, and after a lot of effort, not suddenly, after a lot of effort, they are getting so much of representation and, you know, well-deserved recognition. So that is one issue. And of course, when we talk about today, sitting here, we talk about a film coming from Manipur, on Manipur. Of course, it is relevant because of the violence that Manipur as land is witnessing, right? So it's an extremely critical film, ticking a lot of critical boxes. So all the three statements are correct, and the answer is correct. Okay. So I think this was the last question that I had to discuss. Um, so as I said, you have the key. These were factual questions. I did not have much concepts to explain to you. A lot of conceptual questions have been asked in polity and economy also, and to an extent, I feel science and tech as well. And I'm sure the respective teachers will take care of them. But also, I feel the best thing about deciphering and trying to analyze factual questions is to know the sources, to know what really the UPSC is relying on to test your credibility as aspirants and as future officers. Okay, so I hope this is of some help to you. I hope you've made notes of the sources. I'm not saying they're the only sources, but just to look into the nature of the sources. What exactly are they looking for? Where are they exactly looking into to test you or to test us for that matter? Okay. So thank you so much, and all the best. And I hope, and I think as an endeavor, also we'll also make sure that we construct current affairs, keeping in mind the changes that have taken place in 2026, the fiasco, you can call it whatever. So we'll also keep in mind. So thank you.